Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. I can see people are still joining in. I'll give you a couple of minutes. And while we wait for everybody to join, I'm Angie and I'll be your host for today. With me here, I have two special guests from Komax and Odeven, Stefan and Eve.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
And I'm joining from Berlin, by the way. Please feel free to leave in the chat where you're watching us from. We'd love to hear you. And as people are joining, I want to go ahead and do polls. I've gone ahead and launched a couple of polls that you can submit while we wait for everybody else to join as well. And yeah, I'm curious to see what brings you to the webinar, what you're interested in hearing as well. Hello from Madrid. I'm also going to go ahead and share my screen while we're at this. Hello, Ian from Wales. Hi, Andrew. Lots of people from Wales here. It's good to see everybody. I hope you can also see my screen. Switzerland as well. Hello, Matthias. I think it's safe to get it started with, and then we can still engage with you in the comments. And also, if you're joining at any time, feel free to submit the poll questions, and we'll look at them in the end. So welcome again. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Angie. I'm Senior Field Marketing Manager at Hygraph, based in Berlin, and I'll be your host for today. I have some housekeeping rules before asking our guests to introduce themselves as well. We have our chat box in the right, so feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat box there. We also have a questions tab. You can also look that one. I'll make sure to keep an eye on both of them. And we've launched a couple of polls, so you can feel free to submit them at your convenience. Last but not least, please be kind and respectful to one another in the comments. And I think it's time to get started with the session as well. I'll invite our guests to introduce themselves in a moment. But before, I want to go over the agenda a little bit. So we'll get started with an introduction from Komax and their partner, Odeven. And we'll take a moment to go over the business and operational challenges that inspired the transformation, implementing the solution, what were the results and impact, and then look at the future outlook and opportunities. As I mentioned, we'll have time for a Q&A session all the way in the end, but you can always drop your questions at any point in time, and I'll just go over to the chat box in the right as well as the questions tab in the right to get them. I also put in a reminder for you in the chat so you don't forget to ask your questions. And then to start us off, I'd love to invite Eve and Stefan to introduce yourselves. And before we dive into the transformation, let's set the stage with a quick intro to both Komax and Odeven and the nature of your collaboration.
Thank you, Angie, and hi, everybody. So as a guest speaker today, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Komax, the industry we operate in, and myself. Komax is a global leader in the automated wire processing. So we provide cutting-edge technical solutions that help our customers to automate and optimize their cable and wire production. Komax serves three key markets. They are the automotive one, the aerospace and railway, and the industrial and infrastructure market. And these three industries have in common that they demand precision, speed, and reliability, and that's where Komax delivers real value. And our mission is to continuously improve our competitiveness by innovating in both our products and the processes. So that's including how we manage and deliver content. And my name is Yves, and I work as a project manager for digital services at Komax. And with that brief introduction, I'll now hand over to Stefan.
Thanks, Yves and Andrew. So hello also from my side. I'm from Odeven, so we are a partner of Komax, helping them on their digital journey. Our company is headquartered in Zurich, or located in Zurich, Switzerland, so pretty close by. We've been around for a bit more than 10 years, mainly focusing on experience management and marketing technology, as well as agile projects. So we've been working with Komax for the last 4 years on this initiative, which we will be talking about, and we've built up the various components there. We will hear more about that later on. Myself, are the managing partner of Odeven. I've been working in consulting for more than 20 years now. In the last 10 years in Odeven. So my main role is in experience management, architecture, and then also agile coaching. So nice to meet you all, and then I'll hand back to Angie.
So I've learned about the complexity and constraints of Komax's previous setup, especially how it affected delivery speed for the content and editorial experience. Can you share with us about the digital transformation you had, which urged into action, solving your content challenges beyond the product catalog?
Yes. So as mentioned earlier, we had set some ambitious goals for our digital presence. That means we wanted to move beyond just having a website. We aimed to create a connected, service-oriented, and experience for our customers. One of the key steps was improving how we present and manage our product information. So we introduced a product catalog with a comparison feature, which you see on the left side. This allows customers to easily evaluate different solutions side by side. And this was a big step forward in terms of usability and transparency. We also launched a custom portal, which gives user access to personalized services, documentation, and support. This portal is a central touch point for many of our customers and plays a key role in how we deliver value digitally. And all of this ties into our broader vision of the Smart Factory by Komax. This is about helping our customers digitize and optimize their production environments. So digital services we are building, like the catalog, the portal, and others, are a part of that ecosystem. But we also had challenges, and to get there, we had to overcome some serious blockers. The previous setup was holding us back in multiple ways, and neither our editors nor our stakeholders were satisfied. There were 4 main challenges we faced. The first one was that the development was slow because we were working with a monolithic on-premise system. The second challenge was that the formatting was inconsistent and often required manual HTML edits, which introduced errors and slowed things down. Then the third one was the editorial experience. It was poor, and the updates had to be done manually, and there was no intuitive interface for the content teams. And the fourth challenge was even something as simple as uploading a video required outsourcing to a digital agency. And at the same time, the urgency to change was growing. We were under pressure to deliver digital services faster, and things like this product catalog, the portal, and the other customer-facing tools were seen as a key differentiator in our industry. Then we also had a major rebranding, and brand integrations initiatives were coming up, and the existing setup simply couldn't support it. So on top of that, the CMS tool we had in place before was approaching the end of life, and upgrading to it would have required significant investments without solving our core issues. With that being said, the decision became clear that we needed to rethink our digital architecture from the ground, and that's what we set up, or that was the beginning of the new path we are sharing with you today.
I can imagine that operating across many brands and markets is quite demanding, and also with a legacy CMS, with a legacy system. So what can you walk us through maybe what the transformation looked like technically from Sitecore to the new architecture?
Yeah, sure. So I will actually start off with talking a bit how it looked like before we started. So just as you can see here on this image, there were quite a lot of components involved. So as mentioned before, centrally, Sitecore as a CMS was the central system, which was used for the komaxgroup.com site, so the main website, and also for some other content, but there were also, or still today, are some additional systems involved. So for example, we have, like what you see here on the right hand side, this Komax Direct. This is essentially the portal which is used by Komax for their distributors as well as customers. It's a separate .NET application, also a monolithic setup. Then we have also had quite a few Type 3 CMS systems in place for different brands and microsites. So essentially, what happened is that since with Sitecore building new sites got harder and harder over time, and people just started to find other ways of doing it. So taking up on other systems, and some of the brands which were acquired over time, they already had their own systems. So although it's just one Type 3, there are many instances and various things here. And then also the other thing, what you see more on the below, so there was the already data in the digital asset management and especially in the product information management system, but all this data was manually copied and into the Sitecore. So there was a lot of overhead and work for the editors, just purely adding all the content for the products. And as you can imagine, Komax being a rather big group, there are a lot of products with a lot of technical data, and copy them all around manually is just a huge effort to do that. And I think the other thing is also what happened is for every new digital initiative, essentially something new was set up. So there were some new agencies or some new ways of doing things, and it just became kind of a suit, the whole thing, more and more different things all over the place, and there which also led to lack of alignment across the brand. So as you can imagine, if you have different systems, then things will just go also from a consistency layer in the presentation becomes more and more diluted, and everybody does things a bit differently. And for a customer, it's much harder then to see, this is actually all the Komax group, so you don't have one face to the customer, but a lot of different ones. And I mean, another aspect here as well was, I mean, as you can imagine, costs in terms of maintaining and operating all these systems. I mean, this was also growing again over time. So because every other system, even though they weren't that expensive in itself, if you said, yeah, just another small typo instance, but still, I mean, you had to maintain it, right? Also from a security point of view, you have to do all the updates and so on. And this is just something which really, increased the pressure to clean up, let's say, this whole landscape. So, and this plus obviously the business drivers you've already mentioned before, which led then, like around 4 years ago, actually, there was the decision to create a new vision for this whole digital experience at Komax. So we did a design sprint. So that was a 1 week sprint with a lot of stakeholders from business, but also from the technical departments to jointly try to define how a future landscape could look like for Komax. And essentially what we are now seeing here and in the next slide is what we came up with as an idea or as a rough sketch. And now in the meantime, it's filled with actual content and application. So one central part here was the decoupling of the various systems. So to really come to a more composable architecture here, having the front ends decoupled from the delivery of data and the management of the content, as well as being able to integrate additional data sources. So for this, one of the principles or architecture approach we were using was like a so-called, we call it DACH architecture. So you might have heard of MACH, so microservice oriented, API first, cloud native, and headless architecture. So we are not focusing on microservices, but more on data. That's why the first M was replaced by a D. So it's the data-oriented architecture, because this is essentially the core topic which we had for Komax. Yeah, so essentially from the right-hand side, if we look at what we have here now is like we're working on having a single point of entry for all the Komax digital interfaces. So we have now all the, not all, because in the meantime, there were some new brands acquired by Komax. We will talk about that later, but the brands which were originally there when we started, they're all integrated into this one platform, and the main entry point, komaxgroup.com, leads you to all the different contents. And the other one is this myKomax portal, which also runs on the same infrastructure, and then also some of the digital services we have here. To have like a single entry point, you also need a single login. So there, one component we have here is the custom identity and access management, with which login you can then use all the services of Komax. Before there were about 4 or 5 different logins. Now we are consolidating into just one single login for all the application. The decoupled front end, just for those who are more technical, I mean, this is built on Nuxt, which is hosted on a Netlify platform for global delivery, and it's completely separated from all the data in the background. But then in the central area, which you see here, is of course Hygraph as a central place for all the editorial content which we have. So as you can imagine, in having different brands, different microsites and so on, there is quite a lot of editorial content. So this is all managed in Hygraph. Additionally to that, we also have the possibility now to actually source data directly from the various line of business systems. So for example, now what I mentioned before, this product information management, this data is not copied anymore, but we actually just source it from the PIM system. It's integrated into the website, and we can use that. So we have a central GraphQL API to source all this data from. So from the front end, we don't need to have like many different endpoints. We can all source it from one single API. And then we also can add other data like from the master data management and any other system. This then combined with the data, the editorial data we have in Hygraph, and managed all in the structure which we maintain in Hygraph. Then also on the left-hand side, I mean, there are some, we will come to that, I think, again later in a bit more detail. So we have like Salesforce as one of the CRM and Service Cloud, a central tool, and then we have ERP from SAP, which is used in the Komax group. So also the content from there we can integrate into this overall architecture. Yeah, so I think this is from the more architectural point of view, and then I'll give back to Angie to continue on the next topics.
Now, with the new setup and architecture, I want to ask Eve, how does life look for content teams and what are they able to do differently in their day-to-day?
Yes. So what you see here is the so-called editor area, to which I like to introduce you. It's a space we created to make life easier for our content editors. It shows all the CMS components available in Hygraph, like a visual catalog, so editors can scroll through and see exactly what they can use to build new pages. This reduces the need to ask the developers or designers for the help, which saves time and also ensures that everyone uses the same building blocks. It also helps us to move faster and stay consistent and reduce errors through all our brands and also globally. And many teams face the challenge of knowing what's available in their CMS. So with that tool, we bring clarity and speed to the process, so editors can, build the pages more conveniently. I kindly ask you, Angie, to go to the next slide. So now let's take a step further. That inside the editor area we have seen before, we have also built a custom tool which is called the demo builder, which you see on the left side as a GIF. And it lets the editors pick and arrange components to create a preview of a new page. They can see how the page will look like before it goes live and before they build it in Hygraph. So it gives the editors more control and confidence. This means they can experiment, they can make changes, and they can get feedback without the need of a developer. And it, as I said, speeds up the approvals and shortens the time from the time to the launch. They technically only need to discuss within their team and not with several stakeholders. And this process has already proven successful. So the sites on the right-hand side, these 4 microsites, they were all built using this exact workflow, which editors use the demo builder and then go to the Hygraph as itself. Here it is important to mention that the demo builder and the editor area is built on our website in a so-called restricted area, and it's not in Hygraph yet, so they can see how it looks like on the web page before building it up. Then I'd like to ask you to go to the next slide. And now what we are seeing here is the backend of Hygraph. So when the editors created the page preview on the website in that demo builder, they go back to the Hygraph and then rebuild the page according to their preview. So they can easily edit and manage the content blocks directly then in the CMS. The good thing and also the convenient thing about these blocks is that they can be reused across different microsites. So the microsites you have seen before on the right side, they are all built on the same components which we have in place in Hygraph. So if something changes, we only need to update it once, and then it went through all the microsites if needed. This saves time, it reduces duplications, and it helps us also scale faster the content we want to bring live. Many organizations need to manage content across multiple sites, and with this setup, we make our processes much more efficient. So with that said, I'd like to hand back to Angie.
Thank you. And now that you have a faster way to operate on product catalogs and also build microsites, how does this help you accelerate other projects? I know you mentioned about something about digital services, and can you tell us more about that?
Yes, of course. So let me give you a quick look at what our customers can do inside the Komax customer portal, which, as Stefan mentioned, is built on the same platform as the website. So one of the most valuable features is the service tickets on the bottom left side. This means that customers can create the support request for their machines directly in the portal. They can describe the issue, they can upload relevant information and communicate back and forth with our service technicians. And that is all in one place. This creates a seamless support experience and keeps everything documented and trackable. And on the right side, you see the Komax inventory. It's another key feature. So customers can see all the Komax machines installed in their plant. What's really helpful is that each machine service history is linked. So customers can view all open and past tickets for a specific machine directly from the inventory. And this connection between inventory and service tickets makes it much easier to manage the equipment and the support. And yeah, with that setup, we can build up more services as they have the inventory in the customer portal. That's a quick overview of what's available. And Stefan, maybe you can take us behind the scenes.
Yeah, happy to do that. So let's look a bit on how we actually build up these various services or elements, or what we offer on the platform in terms of integration and building up digital services. So essentially, we have different integration patterns for the digital services. So essentially, we have one is that we integrate data directly from a system or get data from a system. The other one is that we use services, so APIs to integrate systems. Then the third one is that we just have front-end integrations. This is not used for the myKomax part. This is more on the website. Certain front-end services are integrated there. And then the fourth one is that we have a single sign-on to a separate application. So they have the same login and you can go from there. So one example which you can see here in the background image kind of in myKomax, you have these various tiles with your services. You can then also see what the status is, if you can register or you already registered on one of the services. We also have a whole delegated administration that the customers can manage their users by themselves. And then, for example, for the inventory, which we see here on the right-hand side, so there we have a data integration. So we essentially source the data about all the machines and their configurations originally from the ERP. Then it's moved into the master data management combined with the organizational data, and then we get the data and display that into myKomax. So this is one way of doing it. And the other example with the service ticketing, this is also this is integrated actually through a service. So in the background here we have the service cloud of Salesforce, which is used, and there we just source the data from the Salesforce APIs and display it. And also if we have transactional information like creating new ticket, so this is then directly sent to the APIs of Salesforce. So we don't replicate any data, so we directly use the actual APIs which are already available, but in the context of a specific user, we access those data in the background. And I mean, the whole thing here, what you can see, because also for your front end, and I mean, the various elements you have here, you also need always some editorial content and also translations of all these interfaces. And there is then where Hygraph again comes into play, that we have the possibility to source then whatever editorial content we need for also myKomax, to also have that here and also manage the translations of this content through the Hygraph translation capabilities, where we also have some setup with how we can translate, import, export the translations with the agency to manage that in a more automatic and simple fashion. Yeah, so that's it from the digital services part. So back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Stefan. I'd also like to take a few minutes to hear more about overall other results and other impacts that this transformation brought across teams and across the company.
Yeah, so I think we can round up the circle here that, as mentioned before, we had in place Sitecore as a CMS tool, which it was hard to create new sites. We had to outsource a video upload, and with Hygraph in place, we can the web update publication is now faster, so 2 to 3 times. And as said, it allows teams to respond quickly to changing needs. If you have something which needs to be in place fast, and it also enables us to create microsites within weeks or days if needed, as before we had months, which is a long time to create a microsite, which sometimes is not that big or includes not that much content as time needs to be spent for getting it live. And the editors of the Komax group, so the editors which use Hygraph, have shared a positive feedback. So they noted that it's convenient, it's very manageable, and everything is in one place. So whether it's creating pages with a different layout or launching uniquely styled microsites, and this flexibility has greatly improved their daily workflows.
That sounds great. Thank you, Yves.
So I'll just dive a bit into the more technical part, or the part about improving loading time and the speed of the website. So I mean, of course, CMS is just one part of that. I mean, it's on the overall architecture, which you have to make sure that you can deliver your content faster. But I think, I mean, it's a central element that you will have also quick access to your content, which was one of the problems before with the whole monolithic setup, everything rendered and built on a Sitecore instance hosted here in Switzerland. It wasn't just that fast also from a global perspective to actually get the content loaded. So if you remember our architecture with decoupling of the various elements, so for the front-end delivery part, as I mentioned before, we use Netlify. So what we do is we essentially, for the initial load of the website, the public website, we use server-side rendering. That means that we actually render the content already on the Netlify instance, so that the pre-rendered website is delivered, or HTML and so on, to the users. So it has a relatively fast loading time for those. We combine that then with client-side rendering. So as soon as you do navigate to another page, we don't re-render the site on the server. We do it directly in the browser of the users. So we only need to fetch the data from the content management systems API. So we don't have the whole overload of all the other elements overhead. So, and then also for all the things which are in the myKomax space, I mean, this is also just client-side rendering, because each user has an individual content, so there is no much use in caching this information. So for the more technical people, so we decided not to use server-side generation of content. So we actually do on the fly server-side render the pages. Server-side generation might be a bit faster, but since content is changing a lot and we can still cache it, we decided to go with this middle route, where we still have quite good results in terms of performance, but also don't have the overhead of regenerating a lot of content all the time. Then the other thing is also from overall global delivery. I think there we have the advantage, because we, as I said, if you just load data directly from Hygraph, we have the CDN in front of Hygraph, where we have also quite good performance all around the world with caching in place. So we can get content there. Same goes for the whole assets which we use. I mean, for a digital asset management system, also there we use all the Hygraph functionality to have global access to those assets which we host there. Yeah, so I think this is a bit more details or technical insights on how we achieve the improvements on the speed and loading times of the website.
Thanks, Stefan. So I want to quickly also stop a little bit at this slide. Looking forward, what's next for Komax and how do you see Hygraph supporting that?
Yeah, let me briefly share what's next. So we are currently working on integrating the website content of several brands, which Komax acquired 2-3 years ago, into the unified digital presence. So the goal is that we improve the customer experience to ensure we communicate with one voice across all touch points. And Hygraph plays a key role in this process by supporting the content operations for the editorial content and digital assets, which Stefan also mentioned right before. So it also helps us combine this content with structured data from various line of business systems, making the experience more consistent and scalable. And yeah, in this project, Hygraph plays a big key role to accelerate all the content of those various brands, which still are on separate URLs, but will be integrated to our main URL, to our main website. And that's, yeah, being said with that.
Thank you.
All right. Then I think the other big part which we are currently working on is replacing the Komax Direct. So this is the current still in use portal. So some of the new services have already been built in myKomax, but there are still some components which are remaining in Komax Direct, which we are now migrating into the new architecture. It's the obvious goal to have like a single entry point, as well as leveraging all the new architectural features and the capabilities we built up over the last years to have like a more streamlined management of content, because also with Komax Direct, there was still some manual or quite some manual work in managing users and managing content and synchronization of content and so on, to have that all automated. And so from an advantage for the end user, which has the single entry point, but also for the whole Komax team to have much less operational work in that area as well.
Thank you. I want to take a moment to conclude this with a few key takeaways. So from what we've seen, the results were not just technical improvements, but also changes on how the team operates since the implementation of the new headless architecture. Naturally, one of the key takeaways I see is a digital maturity driving ROI. It's clear that Komax was ready not to change just the technology setup, tech setup, but also the inherent people and processes that became the change agent. That level of maturity is what I can imagine, is where I can imagine you reached ROI. Yves, do you want to take us through with the next key takeaway?
Yes, please, yes. So one of the most impactful outcomes we have seen is how much innovation can happen when teams are empowered. By giving our content editors the right tools, like intuitive interfaces or reusable components and preview capabilities. With that, we have significantly reduced their reliance on developers. And this not only speeds up the content delivery, but also frees up our technical teams to focus on more strategic work for future services. Yeah. Stefan, would you like to take over the key takeaway 3?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I think modular platforms need mature organizations. What does that mean? It's essentially having a nice modular architecture is one part, but in the end, you also need to have the organization in place to really leverage this. And I think what we experience over the last years in our joint journey, whether it's the Komax Group, is that it takes some time to for people and organizations to really understand what you can do with that, and that you get ready to really leverage these new elements and this decoupling and adding new data and so on. So essentially, we needed some endurance to really get to the point where we can say now we can really quickly introduce new services, have really reap the benefits of what we've built up, because there was a lot of work to have all these things built up. But now you can really use that for new services. And I mean, one point there is that because we started off to really building this whole platform, but one of the key points was to relaunch the public website presence on komaxgroup.com. And I mean, there, Hygraph helped us a lot to do that really fast. So this part, just the editorial part of the whole setup there, was really sped up by the use of Hygraph and what we had there. And this also gave us the chance to have an early win and a success with this public part, and then gave us the needed breath to really continue on integrating all the other systems and the data, which is much more work in the background and much less things you can see. Yeah, so that's, I think, to conclude what we want to share for today.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you both. I think it's time we open it up for questions. And I see we already have some questions in the chat box, so I'll take them one by one. You can still drop any questions in the chat if you have any for us, or in the questions tab. So I'll start with the first one. We have one question from Brian. Brian, let us know if you're still in the chat. Do you sell direct or through distribution? I think maybe this is a question for Yves.
Yes. Hello, Brian. So physically, we sell both direct and through distribution, and as well online. So currently, there is an e-commerce functionality in the old platform in Komax Direct in place. And yeah, according to the ERPs which are integrated to that Komax Direct platform, we sell through distributors or directly to customers. It depends on the area and on the setup. Hope having answered your questions in a way you can work with something.
Yeah, Brian is still in the chat, so he'll let us know. In the meantime, I will take the next question from Matthias. Am I correct in assuming that CIM and CRM are connected as well, directly or via Hygraph?
So I'll take this one. So yes, you're correct. So CIM or CRM is connected to CIM to share the account or organization unit data between them. This is not done by a Hygraph. So this, because we have also middleware in place where we, for data exchange between the systems and which data is not directly served on the website, we use the middleware to connect those two systems.
Thank you. We have another question from Dieter. Which tools do you use for PIM and the MDM?
Okay, I'll also just take this one then. So we use Step. This is a product which covers PIM as well as the MDM functionality. And yeah, so.
Another question from Ian is, do you use Hygraph Content Federation to source the PIM MDM data, or do you load data directly from each system?
Well, I continue then. I'll do this one.
Yes.
So, no, essentially we don't, neither, more or less. So we don't source it directly from the systems. We cache the data, and then we serve it from a caching layer, because these systems it's not 24/7 available. It's also that if there is maintenance, or that if they have like huge data loads and so on, the systems aren't that responsive. And that's why we cache the data before we serve it on the website, which is then done through the GraphQL API, which we have in place. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Stefan. Ian, if you're still there, also Dieter and Matthias, let us know if I've answered your question. Brian is still in the chat, and I think he has a follow-up question for you, Eve. Do you provide the distributors with access to your portals?
Yes, we do. So getting back to the e-commerce question or to the selling question, yes, distributors, customers, and as well the Komax Group employees, which needs to order intercompany or ordering via that e-commerce capability in Komax Direct. And this will also remain, most probably in the new e-commerce functionality than in myKomax.
Thank you. We do have another question from Brian. Does this require an entitlement management system?
So Stefan, you can take over that question if you'd like.
So I'm not sure what you mean by this. That you mean the distributor access or generally our setup? So maybe you can clarify.
I think Brian is still there, so
Yeah.
Distinguish from distributors or direct customers.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. So yes, we essentially in the CIAM, so our customer identity and access management, also distributors are managed there. So essentially, it's not just customers, but actually external users to the Komax Group. And there, I mean, we have essentially two ways of managing the entitlement. So one is that we do that role-based. So essentially, depending on which role a user gets, he gets access to different content. And the second one, because all the users are linked to an organization, also the organization itself can get, so if it's a distributor organization, you can give them different rights. So based on the attribute the user has or the organization, they will have different access to data.
Thank you, Stefan. Brian also says thank you. So if you want to read more about the Odeven and Komax story, I'll leave the link below. We have one last question for now from Jörg. Do you use the Hygraph federation feature to bring in the PIM and the MDM data? I think maybe this was also mentioned before.
Yes, I think this was similar question to what we had before, that we cached the data from MDM and PIM. So this is how we do it. So.
If you have any last questions, you can drop them in the chat now. And if you want to book a meeting with the team or join our community Slack to chat more with us, the links are all in the chat. I guess there's no more questions from the audience. So we can conclude the presentation here. Oh, I see Dieter typing. Maybe there's a question left. Oh, thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody that tuned in for the event. I hope you've enjoyed the story and I hope this was helpful for you. I want to thank also Eve and Stefan for taking out of their time to join us here. And this was also very enjoyable for me to learn about a customer. And I hope to see you in other events as well. Have a great rest of the day and see you in the next webinars. Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining.
Same from my side. Thank you all and have a good afternoon or day or whatever you are. Have a good time.
Thanks, everyone.